3rd anniversary special. I am Ms. Amrit Nagpal, and today we shall be having a special events designed for all of you. But before we begin, I would like to tell you something about ECDF. So come, let's know about what ECDF stands for. So ECDF's full form is Early Child Development Forum, and we are a forum here just 1 minute. We are a forum here, and our vision and mission is to ensure that all the stakeholders in the field of early childhood development come together for a common cause. The forum is largely supported by DNA Acharya Foundation, and the forum started in 2018. And DN Acharya Foundation began in 2014. Now, our vision and mission lies that we want all the stakeholders to come together in the field. And to get them all together, we hold various events in the year. We have lots and lots of webinars, one-day workshops, story kapitaras for all storytellers who would like to showcase their storytelling skills to our young children, teachers, and educators all around the world. We also have an international page, which is led by strong leaders in early childhood development. And in India, we spread across all the 4 zones in India, that's North, East, South, and West. So on today's special occasion, we are here to bring some special workshops for everybody. And of course, we are also going to be having our awards down the line. So let's begin. Our first guest today is Dr. Suja Koshi. Dr. Suja Koshi is a child development and an ECC consultant. She has been the former head of the Department of Human Development from SVT College, SNDT University, Mumbai. She's been a pioneer in creating a passion for young educators to choose the field of early child development. So over to you, Dr. Suja Koshi, and today she's going to be talking on a very important and pertinent topic on the whole language approach. So Dr. Suja Koshi, I now hand over the session to you.
Thank you, Amrit. And I would like to say thank you to ECDF and Vasavi for inviting me to do the session with the participants today. At the outset, I would just like to make a confession that I'm so used to a face-to-face interaction with students, with teachers, that I find this online virtual platform a little uneasy. But I try to visualize in my mind who are the participants, and then I'm trying to do my best. Okay, so if I blunder a little bit, you have to excuse me for that, because I'm so used to 37 years of teaching face-to-face, not in the virtual classroom. So I will just share the screen. Are you able to see the screen? Are you able to see it?
Yes, it's getting started. Yes,
okay.
we are.
So if you look at the title here, I have put it as an introduction to whole language approach, because it's just a 45-minute session. And we really cannot do justice to whole language approach, in that particular time. So you're just going to get a brief of it, and maybe interested people can read more or learn more about the whole thing. So I would like to ask you, think in your mind, what does this picture depict? There are 4 things depicted here, and in your minds you can, if it was a longer session, I would stop and ask you, But I'm hoping that you have understood that the pictures depict something which is coming here in the next slide, that is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, so when we look at these four components, they all come together, and which we call it the language arts. Sadly, in our preschools and schools, we treat them as separate components. We teach listening separately, reading separately, writing separately, but ideally it should all be looked upon as, a wholesome package so that the children are able to make sense of what they are being exposed to. So since this topic is whole language approach, I would focus more on reading and writing, not on listening and speaking. Listening and speaking is definitely the base of the whole language approach. But when we look at reading, when we look at the typical schools who are teaching the children to read, what happens is that, according to you, what would be reading? Would it be decoding words, or it would be comprehension? So all of you must be having some kind of opinion in your minds. But let me tell you, friends, that reading is ideally decoding plus comprehension. When we talk of decoding, what we are meaning is word recognition, and the other is getting meaning or bringing meaning to the printed word. Sadly, schools treat reading as mainly the word recognition, and they sort of ignore the comprehension part of it. So if you tell a child in first standard to read one passage or a page, the child may read it beautifully, but you ask the child two questions out on that paragraph, the child may not be able to comprehend and answer. So it shows that the child is actually not reading meaningfully. So reading skills should be viewed as a skill which involves both decoding and comprehension, so the child can decode and gain meaning from the units of the print. Now, when we look at reading through history, we have seen that there has been different approaches to teaching reading. We have had the alphabet method, we have had phonics, which is still quite popular, and whole language. So as we go through, I will just tell you what's been happening. So basically, all these approaches, though we have seen all of this, there has been something called a reading war or a debate on which is a better method. And we have supporters of all types of reading approaches. One is called the bottom-up approach. Then the next is called the top-down approach. And the third approach is the interactive approach or the balanced approach. Now, what these bottom-up approach or top-down approaches mean, I'll just explain to you in a minute. Now, in the bottom-up approach, basically, it is the alphabetic reading and writing and the teaching reading using phonics. So when we were children, I remember we were taught ABC with the bottom-up approach. Now, what happens is in the bottom-up approach, first the teacher explains the letter or the alphabet, then the blends, then the words, then the phrases, sentences, and then the paragraphs. But in the top-down approach, what happens is first the approach is you start with paragraphs or stories, then you go to sentences, phrases, words, blends, and letters. It's the other way around. It's said that the paragraph form the foundation for the letters or the alphabets. So the people who have supported bottom-up approach in the beginning, what they used to do is they would teach A for apple, B for ball, B for bat, and it used to just go on, and the child would know exactly what it meant, only A for apple or B for bat, C for cat. And then when they came to words, they would say CAT cat, BAT bat. So it was just the alphabet and the memorization or rote memory of the whole thing which came in there. So when we learned spelling, when we were children ourselves, was COME, come, B, C, USC, because that was the alphabetic method that we came into. And in the bottom-up approach, we also have the phonic methods. I think many of you are very familiar with that, wherein suppose we are talking about ma, app, map, okay? So, or ma, op, map, mop. So these are where we teach every sound and then we we hope that the children will learn the sounds and then they'll be able to read the words aloud. Now, in the typical reading instruction, what happens, this thrust has been on teaching decoding skills, and the focus in schools have been portion completion. So materials are presented day after day in the similar manner, no emphasis on meaning and understanding, and there's no enjoyment of the learning happening. And as a result of that, what happens? The average or the intelligent child is able to learn and read meaningfully, but a child who's average or below average will find that they read mechanically, they cannot comprehend, they develop a dislike for reading, which sometimes leads to dropping out of schools, so relapsing into illiteracy because they are not able to retain or understand what they are reading or learning. So what we have to do is that we have to understand that only decoding approach sort of breaks down the things into bits and pieces. And when it is bits and pieces, it doesn't make relevance and it becomes boring and it is mainly teacher imposed. Okay, so this is how the bottom up approach works. Instead of that, if we look at the top down approach, we have the whole word reading, also called look and say and sight words, and we have the whole language philosophy. Now, if you look at the whole language philosophy, we have to firstly understand it is not a direct method. It is a belief. It's a philosophy rather than a method. This term whole language was introduced by Dr. Kenneth Goodman in 1980s. And if somebody asks me define the whole language approach, it's really very, very difficult. Okay, but we have to remember it's a perspective about how children acquire reading and writing. Okay, according to this approach, it is just as a child learns to talk, in a, it's, the child babbles and then speaks fun words, then two-letter words, two-word sentences, and then complex sentences. It's a very unconscious, unstructured learning to talk. The same way, in the whole language approach, we assume that children learn to read also in a very, natural and meaningful manner if we just allow them to be immersed in literacy. Okay, so right now when I say this, you may wonder what it is so abstract. So yes, in the beginning, when we talk of whole language approach, it looks a little abstract, but as we go down the slides, I'm hoping that things become a little more clearer to you. So first I'm going to talk about what are some of the beliefs of whole language approach. Now the beliefs is that when schools break language into bits and pieces, it's hard for children to make sense out of nonsense. Okay, so if this we find is that we should not break things into bits and pieces, it's as if I just think of two children. They have been given a 20-piece puzzle. And one child, I just gave all the 20 pieces separately and I said, now you make a puzzle. And then the other child, I take the puzzle and I show them the whole puzzle and I talk about, see, this is a puzzle about a jungle and there's an elephant here and there's a monkey sitting on the tree and there is grass down. I have talked about it. And then I take the pieces and break it up into 20 pieces and I give the child, who do you think can make the puzzle easily and faster. Okay, and I'm sure you would agree that it is the second child to whom we explained what is this puzzle about, and then the child went about making the puzzle. In the same way, in the whole language approach, they say that we need to give things as a whole. So one of the essential beliefs of the whole language approach is reading is learned from whole to part. Okay, so it's like you give them a whole apple and then you cut it into pieces and then you tell what is the taste of it, right? The same way you are giving reading in the wholesomeness of it, rather than you know, take one alphabet and say this is B, and then we say this is T, and then expect them to make sense out of these alphabets that they have learned through the month and through the this. So whole language means teaching from the whole to the part. So first we work on a paragraph, then the phrases, then the sentences, then the sounds of letters within the words that come in. The other belief of the whole language approach is that all the language processes, that is listening, speaking, reading, and writing, they are learned in naturally in a meaningful context as a whole and not in parts. So this is a very, very important belief of whole language approach, that we cannot dissect these components and say, I'm having a listening period where children have to just listen and tell me the things, or this is the reading time where they just learn the alphabets and then the next period is a writing time. No, it is learned in naturally in meaningful context. Please remember the word meaningful context. Okay, because when we are doing a lot of activities in the classes, sometimes we have to keep in mind, how can I keep the meaning up when I'm introducing reading and writing? I hope you all are able to understand what I'm talking. In my classes, I have the eye contact, yes, and I have my thumbs ups also, but here I'm missing out on all that. Anyway. So all the language arts come together in a whole language approach, wherein children are exposed to it together. The third belief is the heart of a whole language orientation are the children or the learners. Okay, we have to have a child-centered kind of an approach. So it's not the skills that are important. It's not the materials that are most important. It's not the syllabus that's the most important, or the teachers which are most important. All these are important in their own way. Yes, the child needs to have the skill, the material, and the teacher around, but they are not the most important. We have to follow what the children will really want in that particular situation. So that's why I get a little perturbed when, you know, there are schools which run on ready-made syllabus, where a whole month syllabus is put and the teacher is told you have to do this at this particular time on this particular way. Then we find that whole language approach is really difficult to function from that angle. We have to take cues from the children. Every word that you speak, sometimes so spontaneous, incidental learning that we talk about. So we have to remember children should become the heart of a whole language approach. So children are viewed as capable, active learners who lead us the way. If all of you must be familiar with Piaget's theory, wherein we look upon children as active learners. Constructivism. So it is from children, we pick up cues and then we provide them the exposure. And the fourth belief of whole language is a teacher is a facilitator, okay, who facilitates children's learning. So children have to be given importance. Children and teachers collaborate and talk and discuss and share, because that's how children learn. It's not that the teacher comes, talks a lot of things, children listen, and we assume that they have gaining in their literacy. Okay, that's not how literacy occurs. The fifth belief is small group learning. Language is learned best in groups, working with partners. when children talk to their other children on their desk, on their small tables or in small groups sitting on the floor, they learn a lot in this whole process. So learn, even if you have a group of 30 to 40, part of the day you can have whole group learning, but part of the day we have to break up into small groups. Now, these are some of the beliefs of whole language approach. Now, let's try and see how to make whole language approach come alive in a classroom. There are many, many things you can do, but because this time is short, I'm going to be keeping it as brief as possible. The first thing is we have to set up a print-rich laboratory. A print-rich laboratory means what? We should have lots of sight words and sentences on the bulletin boards and on the walls for children to see. Okay, very often teachers are very artistic. They put up bulletin boards of, they will draw things, the sceneries of the beach. They will put the animals in the jungle, the farm animals. It's all beautifully drawn, or pictures are put up, but the words are not written. So it's very important that we have a lot of print everywhere in the classroom. So print could be names of children, labels on the toys, on the equipment, on the furniture, weather charts, days of the week, calendar, song charts, story charts. Okay, so it's important that child should be able to see print around, because then only the child realizes that print is meaningful. Otherwise, when we tell the child you have to read, they are not understanding what it is. So they should understand that if I read something, I am getting some meaning out of it. So the teacher can have a lot of captions around the classrooms. So these are labels that you can put on your toys like puzzle, shelf, window, computer, all of it is labeled. I know many schools are doing it, but if you are doing less, please add more print into your classroom environment. So it's here, you can see how the print is there near the window, you write the word. And when I say print rich, please do not use capital letters. Please use lowercase letters, because when we take a page to read, it's not in capitals. It is, a page is only the first letter or the proper nouns, etc. are in capitals. So we have to have small case or lowercase letters which are there in the sight words. Okay, so here you think that all the creativity, activity things are labeled, it's written. So it's not only for the teacher, it's for the children. Okay, then we talk a lot about environmental print. We have to assume that even before the child comes to the school, there is a lot of environmental print that the child is familiar about. Okay, it could be that child is using Colgate in his home, or he's going to McDonald's, or he's had Pepsi, or he's seen Band-Aids. So he's seeing these again and again. So you can take advantage of it and try to put it in your classroom, and the child who can read it, they are encouraged to identify what they see. Because many a times, like sometimes you may see a 2-year-old who's going out in the car with the mother, suddenly points to a billboard and says Pepsi. How is it that he could read it? That's because the sight word is in there. It has become a visual memory for the child. So take advantage of this particular thing. So world of print should be there. Here you will find that there is a lot of sight words along with, we call it word shapes. Okay, because the people in remedial education would know what are word shapes, word contours. You will see that the outline of the word is put in. That's not so important. What is important is print should be there. If you add in the word shape, it adds, more authenticity to the whole thing. When we talk of print-rich environment, we can put our rules that we have told the children. We can put that in the classroom. So the teacher has discussed many of the rules, like she may say, we raise our hands to speak, or we work quietly at our seats. So she puts all of this up and she refers to it when she is talking. So kids see it often and it becomes something like a print-rich environment for them. So even when you are having toys or the children are picking up things and putting up in their, doll's corner or any other, you can have these words which children can add next to their toys. Even when we sing songs, very often we sing a song, music time, song time, and we end it there. Make a chart out of it. Here it's a Little Miss Muffet song, and we write the whole thing, discuss it with the children, put it up so that children know, okay, this is how it is. So maybe they see it again and again and they are able to read a few letters out of it or a few words out of it. Here it's a song, Way Up High the Apple Tree, Five Little Apples Smiled at Me. So we generally do it with a lot of pictures or videos, but do we use print? This should be an added feature in every classroom that you have. This is the days of the week. Suppose you are teaching them about apples and fruits, you're talking about this. So you can have, how do you like your apples? Do you like it, like a juice? Do you like it like a pie? You like it plain? So, and these kids' names could be written, who all like it the particular way. So again, the names of the children, the words, etc. will come in. Suppose you have had a field trip, make an experience chart or a language experience chart and put it where we ask the children, today, where did we go? So they say, we went to R.A. Dairy. So you ask them, what did you see? And then whatever sentences they gave you, add it in your chart. So you have to make a chart along with children. And this is very important because very often I have seen that teachers make their charts when children are not there. And they put it up in the classroom, but kids don't pay any attention to it. Okay, there was a teacher who in June, when she started school, she made beautiful charts and put it up on her classroom. Kids came after 10 days and she had it on for 10 days, but none of the kids noticed it. On the 11th day, when she removed it, she asked the children, what is missing from the walls? None of them could say what is missing. But suppose if she had waited for the children, she had taken their help, discussed it, and put the same chart when they were there, kids would have looked at it, talked about it, even when the teacher is not there. When we have activities, make it print rich, label all the crayons, the glues, the brushes, etc. Okay. Even if you have few children coming in, right here, you can see an arrow which says that the names of the children who are at this activity center. So if a child comes in after this activity, they'll cross out their name and they will go ahead. Okay, so here you can see that he's finished doing that. So he moves on. So it's print rich. The next very important way in which we make a whole language class come alive is children's literature. Children's literature means stories, songs, anything that children will like it. I would like to start with a poem, A Reading Mother. You may have intangible wealth untold, caskets of jewels and coffers of gold. Richer than I, you never can be. I had a mother who read to me. This is a poem by Strickland Gillian. If you substitute that word mother to a teacher, all mothers don't read to kids. Sadly, we are losing out on that whole concept of stories and reading, etc. So if you substitute, you become the teaching, the reading teacher. And if you pass on this joy of reading to children, that's the best treasure that you can give to the children. And children literature can be used with a purpose to create an interest in the world of print, to lay the foundations of literacy in the broader concept. So I know that all schools have storytelling sessions. Yes, that's very important, but please include story reading also in your classroom at least 4 times a week. because the books that you read and you leave it in the books corner, children then pick it up and read it. If you just have a lovely library or a library book corner in your center, the children will not pick it up. So read it, create an interest. So they have to foster a love for reading. That's a very, very important task that you as teachers have it. And I would say that ideally you should read out stories and poems 5 to 10 minutes every day, because the benefits of it are so much. You know, they simply hear the others reading and they are able to understand the annotation, they can, the vocabulary improves, because when we tell a story, we simplify our language. But when we read a story, we are using more formal language and they are able to develop better vocabulary. And the real value of reading is that they incorporate so many subtleties of being readers without realizing it. They see how a teacher holds a book. She sees how a teacher turns the pages. They become familiar with the formal book language, and it exposes them to the beauty of language and, repetitive, predictive language, etc. So it's a wonderful gift that you should definitely create in children, and you have to attract children to books by reading to them, displaying them in different baskets or tables, or, you have to make your classroom as inviting. These are books all displayed for the children. Sometimes in older classes, you can display books by a particular author also. Because when we read a book, we say, what is the title of the book? Who's the author of the book? And, kids are familiar with this whole thing. Reading corners should be a part of every classroom, and you can include newspapers there. You can include cushions and other things where the children can just cozily go and read things. So you have your, it can be a small little corner depending on the space you have. You can have a bigger corner, but a reading corner is very, very important. And put the books that you have read in that corner first. Okay. Now this is a whole language wherein, suppose I have taught them the Muffin Man song, then I'm taking the letter M and I'm talking of muffin, man, and the children have to understand the sound of it. They have to understand which letter it is. So from the song, you have come to the words, and then from the words, you have come to the letter. Your teacher has written at the, circle time, what is the message that she has for children, and children have to come and circle what all letters or words that they know in that particular passage. We find that children in whole language approaches show eagerness, interest, enthusiasm, motivation to read. That's because reading is done in a very fun manner, not like you're just teaching them the letters or alphabets separately. Another thing I told you is that reading and writing are complementary and should happen together. Okay, you can't teach reading and writing as separate lessons. Integrating them is very, very important. So writing is again a product, process, not a product. So it's not how well the child has written A or B or T that is important. Ideally, how they learn to speak, the same way they learn to write. And we have to provide time for writing. And in schools, we should not hurry them and make them write ABCD, but we have to allow them to experiment with variety of writing instruments. They can use crayons, they can use chalks, they can use pencils, they can draw, they can scribble. So we have to try and see that we become models of writing. So children should realize, I told you that writing should happen in a meaningful manner. So when suppose you have realized that your paints are over or something else needs to be ordered in your classroom, you can sit down with the children and say, hey, let's make a list for what are the things that we need to buy for your classroom. So teacher can make a list in front of the children. So they realize that, okay, writing has a purpose. As I told you earlier, you write about the field trip that you have visited in front of the children. Suppose one child is sick and absent. All of the children will be sitting down and the teacher can say, oh, today Anita is absent. Let's write a letter to her and tell her how we are missing her in class. So she takes a paper, she writes, dear Anita, how are you feeling now? So she is demonstrating and modeling writing to the children. The children can write thank you notes. Suppose you have had a resource person like a dentist or a doctor who's come in. With the help of the children, you say, we that auntie had come today to teach us so many things. So let's write a thank you note to the doctor who came in there. Or suppose a teacher has transferred to another school and gone and she has written you a letter. You read out that letter and say, see, this teacher has. So what happens, these different circumstances, the children are realizing that writing has a meaning. It is just not writing the writing patterns or then we write ABCD. That's not it. They have to realize, and it has to come naturally and meaningfully. So we can see literacy during dramatic play. I'm sure all of you provide some Doll's Corner and other things. So keep paper and writing tools in each of your center. So materials in the dramatic center, Doll's House can be notepads, pencils, crayons, newspapers, mails, post, telephone directories, magazines, cookbooks, empty forms, stamps, all this, greeting cards, so that the children are seeing print in their environment. Like I remember one child who said, she told her friend, I'm going to make some soup for you. So her friend asked, do you know how to make that soup? She took one cookbook from the corner and said, let Mama read from the cookbook. Let me see if I can make it. So it is that they are sort of imbibing so much from the environment and we need to allow them to use it in the same way. And they will start writing it also. For example, here, this is a doctor's clinic. This was set up in a classroom. And then children are given pads, and paper, and they can write down just like what the doctor scribbles, a prescription. Now, this is a doctor's prescription while playing doctor. If you notice, the child has observed a doctor writes the patient's name. So you'll find on top, there's something like that looks like a patient's name. Then the child has scribbled medicine, which is there. And then at the end, the child has signed something. So it means that there's so much, this is called emergent literacy. Please allow this. In this, you will also find instead of scribbles, they know some letters and alphabets. It may be reversed, it may be somehow, but there's so much of meaning in it. Please encourage all of this in your classrooms. The grocer shop here has a lot of literacy things. Here they have pads, telephone, now it's only mobile phones which are there and we don't like children to play with mobile phone, but keep the other telephone where the children can write, take down messages. Oh, who's calling? Mommy's friend is calling. Take down a message for your mother. So they again take a pen and a pad and they write down a message. Okay. This is a beauty parlor that the children are playing, and then the cost they write of a haircut and this and etc. So they look at hairstyling books. So again, in meaningful environment, they're looking at materials. So children learn to write by practicing writing. It may be not the ideal writing, but just allow them to do what they are used to. You can have resources for the children to refer to. You can have high frequency words, spelling aids in the classroom. You can just put it up. You can have models of different writings. suppose it's a child's birthday and the child has drawn something and they want to write happy birthday, Nitin. He wants to say that, and he doesn't know how to write happy birthday. And first time they may write something wrong, it's okay. But second time they may realize, oh, here's the birthday card and birthday looks something like this. So let me write the correct letter. So it just, we call it emergent literacy. So we allow children to have classroom mailboxes. They can write to each other, take a page. Whom do you want to write to your friend? So write, and they will pick up and write whatever. It can be a scribble, but when you ask them, what have you written? And they'll tell you what they have written. So in the beginning, their writing will look like a scribble. Then they will have letter-like letters. Then it comes to phonetic spellings, then random invented spellings. And then finally comes the conventional writing, which is there. Here, if you see, it's a drawing by a 2-year-old. It's a real drawing. The child drew something and said it's an apple. And after drawing the apple, the top part is the apple. And the way in which she named it, she said, this is written apple. Can you see a difference in the way she has drawn the figure and the way she has written the alphabet? The child at 2 years knows that letters are different from figures. Are we allowing this emergent writing to come up is a question that we have to ask ourselves. Here again, it's a scribble stage where children have written something like a letter to somebody. Okay. This is invented spellings. Activity, ATVT, okay? Your trees have leaves. Of course, it's not correct, but you just allow it to. The child has written big words, bulldozer, rectangle, could, money. It's not correct, but we accept it. We accept it and teach parents to accept it. You need to have orientation for the parents and tell them, hey, in our schools, we allow it. Just have patience. So don't go for conventional spellings the right way. I remember a child who was around 4 years, wrote something for his mother. The mother used to go to work and she would say, whatever you want to write, you write on this page. So this child drew the favorite toy. And then he said, I couldn't open the battery system. We couldn't open it. So I waited for my father. So there's so much of information, expressive language is happened. And if I start looking at the spelling and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, the child will never want to write it. Whole language approach, to sum up, means we should use authentic literature and not phonic work sheets all the time. Literacy in meaningful natural events, reading for comprehension, writing as a process, and writing for a real audience. There are stages that teachers go through in becoming a whole language teachers. After hearing this, some of you have never heard of whole language will say, oh God, it's so hard. I don't know enough. I cannot go ahead. Some will say, okay, maybe I can find out. It's possible. Some will next go to the stage.
We proceed towards wind up.
Yeah, I will do exactly what the experts say. And then as you become more experienced, you will say, I'll adapt my expert word to my context. So that's the stages we go through. And as teachers, I would say we need to do an interactive approach. I believe that we need a balanced approach where we teach them phonics, but with a literature-based reading. So we encourage bottom-up and top-down approach simultaneously throughout the reading processes. There should be a balance of whole language and phonic activities. So starting the journey from a traditional textbook, workbook, to the whole language is difficult. The shift is not easy, but can we make a bridge so that we are able to get a lot of components of whole language so that it is meaningful? And it's worth it because I have seen it in action. I've seen it in many schools abroad. I have witnessed it. I've seen it with children that I have encouraged to do it. So it's beautiful. Whole language is beautiful. My whole research of PhD was on effect of children's literature on children's reading. So I am very, very passionate, and I would say, go ahead, try it out. Thank you for your patient hearing. Any questions? I don't know what is the system. No.
Thank you, Dr. Suja Koshi. I think that was a wonderful session, very insightful. And I completely agree when you say that, we have to have an extremely print-rich environment, whether it's our physical classes for sure, but try to make our online classes, now that we are in an online mode, print-rich as far as possible. If not online, then our classrooms print-rich, homes print-rich as possible. We have Miss Julie who would like to ask you a question. So Miss Julie, I request you to please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you for that. That was really, really enlightening. I have 2 nurseries with preschool children, and I've actually written a phonics program. And the phonics program is based on adventures where children actually go on adventures to decode, and then I've written books to go with those adventures. So we try and bring learning to life, and it's, we have the feedback we're getting from schools when they're going into the primary schools is that boys are achieving much higher than they would normally, because they seem to be turned off by formal, as you were saying, the boring way of teaching phonics. Yeah. So we've done it in a real adventurous way, and I'm just waiting to sort of bring that to life and hopefully get it published. But it was really fascinating what you've said. Thank you.
If I had time, I would even enlighten about why these workbooks have come in, because it's a very interesting history and story. And we'll be really surprised who is promoting the whole thing. Just as we say pharmacies promote medicines, there are publishers who promote workbooks. So we should be cautious. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Suja. And thank you, Julie, for that question. And I think one session is too short to learn about whole language approach. Maybe in future, we could request ECDF to have a detailed workshop on whole language approach, because it's absolutely very meaningful in today's times. Thank you so much on behalf of ECDF. And now it's time to proceed further. Now I request Dr. Vasavi to show us a small presentation and a video on the work of ECDF. So over to you, Dr. Vasavi. Dr. Vasavi, I would like to invite you to say a few words now.
Thank you, Amrit, and thank you, Dr. Suja, for this lovely session that we had today on the day 2 of ECDF third anniversary celebrations. And EdHit is one of our programs which is for enrichment of early years educators and parents so that they know the right way to go about with their children. As far as the ECDF Nava Uday project goes, we show a video of that. And we have been trying to do work with children from the interiors of the Northeast region who do not have these facilities of going to a good school or to get the best in the early childhood years. So we have been trying to assess their needs, reach out to them in terms of materials, books, and also tutorials to help them further their education. And we would also look into their getting into the formal schools after their initial years in the pre-primary section. So this is what we have been doing, and this video was all about it. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And thank you, Amrit. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vasavi, for enlightening us with the Nava Uday program. And now it's time to move on to the award section. So just give me 1 second. I'm not going to keep all the awardees waiting. I know that we all have been waiting for this movement. So just embrace yourselves. We'll very shortly know and move to the next set of awards. Just one moment. So welcome to ECDF Pinnacle Education Awards 2021, our third edition. Our first category of award is Best Consultant in Early Childhood Education, India. And the award goes to Amol Barbare from Enlit Kids, Pune. Can we hear a big round of applause for them? So I request everybody to, unmute themselves so that we could hear the clapping sound for Mr. Amol Barbare. Yes, moving on further. Our next awardee is Neeti Nagarkar from Mumbai. Can we hear a big round of applause for Neeti Nagarkar?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Neeti. Wonderfully presented award. So let's move on further. Our next category of award is the Best Education Consultant in Early Childhood Program, India, and the award goes to Shubha Goswami. She is the Vice Principal of MBCN from Noida. Can we hear a big round of applause for Ms. Shubha Goswami? Yes, we'll move on to our next segment, and our next awardee is Ms. Uma Chandrakala from Bangalore. Can we hear a big round of applause for Ms. Uma Chandrakala?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 awardees at this point. Ms. Neeti, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, ECDF, for considering me worth for this award and recognizing the efforts that I have been putting it all throughout the years. And it's a pleasure to meet you, Amrit, here on this platform. And it's been great. Thank you so much, Dr. Vasavi. I really admire your work that you've been doing. I have seen your website several times, and it's perfectly, what I fall short of words of admiration for you and your work.
Thank you.
Do let me know if I can be of any help to you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for recognizing my efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neeti Nagarkar. We have Ms. Uma Chandrakala. Ms. Uma, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's not only for the award, but thanks for creating this platform, because I really, I don't know how to thank Dr. Vasavi for this, but it's a beautiful platform where every day there's so much of knowledge that's being shared. It's ocean of knowledge. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move to the next set of awards. Just give me one moment. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next section. Just one moment, please. I apologize for the glitch. Our next category is for the best innovation in early learning and child development, India. And the award goes to Ms. Ramandeep Kaur for content and curriculum developer from Bangalore. Can we hear a big round of applause for Ms. Ramandeep?
Thank you.
On to the next. The next awardee is Ms. Ritika Grover. She's an education consultant from New Delhi. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Ritika Grover? Thank you. Our next awardee is Ms. Shweta Bagul. She's the founder of Bright Beginners International Preschool, Maharashtra. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Shweta? The next person is Ms. Deepika Shah Pandit. She's a contributor to Diksha Portal, Belgaum MP School from Assam. Can we hear a big round of applause for Ms. Deepika?
Thank you.
And we will stop right here. And can I request Ms. Ramandeep and the other awardees to say a few words? Ms. Ramandeep, can we go with you first?
Yes, ma'am. A very good evening, all of you. Can you see me?
Yes, you're visible.
Great. So a very good evening, all of you, and it's such an honor to be a part of this 2 days ceremony. So it takes a lot of effort, I can understand, to arrange and to get this award ceremony. And I had learned a lot in these 2 days. So I learned a lot, in fact. So I had noted down, but I will just speak impromptu because I'm very bad at memorizing. So I generally speak my mind. So it was a great learning. In fact, I learned a lot about neuroplasticity yesterday, which was a new concept for me. Then again, one of the panelists mentioned about Potter's wheel, that how one hand is of the parent and the other hand is of the teacher, and how both the hands are important to shape the pot. So, and even today there was a learning insight for the reading workshop. So 2 days have been a great learning and teaching. I guess it's a ever learning process, and every day, every new day is a challenge. And as an educator, we should be always looking out for opportunities to make the classrooms, to make the education more interesting, more engaging, keeping child as the center. As ma'am also rightly said in today's reading workshop, the child should be the center. So we should be more empathetic towards the children, and we should think as a child how he or she would understand this particular topic, and we should make a lesson plans and a learning accordingly. So, and once again, I would like to thank all the participants and congratulations to all the awardees for this particular event. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Deepika, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I am deeply pleased and honored to receive this prestigious award. I sincerely thank to the respected members of the honorable team and jury of CDF Pinnacle Educational Award. I grateful to the lecturers of this conference for the valuable lectures. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next category of awards. You'll need to give me one moment. Our next category of awards is for the best principal of the year. And the award goes to, we're talking about India as a zone. The award goes to Ms. Krishna Shri Lokinendi, Principal for Kairos International School, Hyderabad. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Krishna? Next is Ms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is Ms. Bharti Ponnuswamy from Shri Bharti Vidyalaya Nursery and Primary School from Tamil Nadu. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Bharti? Our next category of awards is category in Special Needs Education India. And our awardee is Ms. Ajitha Vinod Menon. She is the principal of Vidya Global Academy, Kochi from Kerala. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Ajitha? Thank you so much. Now I would request Ms. Krishna to say a few words regarding the event.
Thank you so much for having given us this opportunity. It was a wonderful platform to connect to, and it was both the days, the sessions were really enriching. Thank you so much.
I request you to please stay further on because we have another session coming up on organic storytelling. But until then, I am going to be proceeding with the next set of awards. Just give me one moment. Our next set of awards is in the category of Best Mentor in Early Childhood Program, India. And our awardee is Ms. Kirti Pramod Kadwale. She is the proprietor of Kinder Dreams Preschool, Alibag, Maharashtra. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Kirti? Let's move on to our international section and towards our international awardees. Our first category is Best Mentor in Early Childhood Program, International. And our first awardee is Ms. Sana Fatima Larik. She is the Montessori Directress of United Arab Nations. So a warm welcome and applause to you, Ms. Sana. Can I request everybody to please keep their microphones on mute? Thank you. Our next Best Education Consultant in Early Childhood Education International is Ms. Azura, and she's from Veterans University College from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Azura? Our next awardee for the category of Best Innovation in Early Childhood Learning and Child Development is Gayatri. She is an educator from Olive School from Qatar. Can we have a big round of applause for Ms. Gayatri? Our next awardee is in the category of Excellence in Special Needs Education International is Ms. Nicole Tucker. She is the CEO and founder of Tucker Academy, United States. Can we have a big round of applause for her? Now, I would request a few awardees to say a few words regarding the program. I would first like to go on with Mr. Amol Barbare. Mr. Amol Barbare, could you please unmute yourself and say a few words regarding the session and your experience at the awards? Sir, you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, sorry about it. Yeah, thank you, Amrut. It was wonderful to be a part of this session for the last 2 days. I will just take a few seconds to introduce myself because nobody would know who I am or Enlit Kids is. So Enlit Kids is an organization, as the name indicates, it works towards enlightenment of kids and provides meaningful children resources and workshops to 200 plus schools, preschools, NGOs, special educators across Maharashtra. We offer consultation and provide services with more than 1 lakh products, which includes books, teaching aids, Montessori equipment, play equipment, etc. And we are known for our wide range across international and Indian brands, competitive pricing, and last but not least, best-in-class service. I, along with my co-founder Rushali Barbare, thank ECDF for recognizing our efforts through this award and for this wonderful 2 days of sessions, which had very good insights, including, yesterday's the plasticity session, which was really very nice. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I can see a few other awardees here. Ms. Gayatri, would you like to say a few words? Ms. Gayatri, I request you to unmute yourself.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. I am Gayatri from Qatar. It's a privilege to receive this award from ECDF. All the workshops, everything yesterday and today, it was a wonderful session. I would thank ECDF and all the session members for motivating teachers like this. It's really motivating me to do more for my kids. We should think like kids and do like kids, so we will be the winners. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gayatri. I would again like to request everybody to please hold on. We will soon start with our next session, and we've got a very interesting topic coming up next. And I also see some other awardees. In the meanwhile, we've got Ms. Ajita Vinod Menon. I'm going to hand over to you to say a few words regarding this experience of the last 2 days. Ms. Ajita, could you unmute yourself, please?
Very good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, my apology. I'm not in a position to attend this today's session. And I would say I recently had, I got connected with you all very recently, and with a short duration, you have been doing so many good workshops for teachers and very beneficial. And at this juncture, I would thank Dr. Vasai and the whole team for the recognition, for recognizing our work with Vidya Global. Especially, we are focusing on the special need. Thank you so much. And we will be looking forward for more workshops of this sort. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a pleasure knowing. I would like to request Ms. Bharti Ponnuswamy to say a few words regarding the sessions that we've had since the last 2 days. Ms. Bharti, could you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Good evening, ECDF and team. I feel really honored, and it's really a prestigious award. I have joined the forum just recently, month before, I suppose. And the sessions, the workshops that people are doing is fabulous, and really enjoying. You're providing new insights. I feel like I'm very outdated and very happy and blessed to be in the community. Thank you so much for the award.
Dr. Vasavi and the team. Congratulations for doing this wonderful job. Congratulations to all the awardees. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Amrit.
Thank you. Lastly, I would like Miss Julie Robinson to say a few words.
Hi, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being part of this and being allowed to obviously visit this platform and enhance my continuous professional development. Myself and Mandy just want to say thank you so much, and we're honoured to be part of this.
Thank you, Miss Julie. We'll move on to one of the most awaited sessions for today's evening, and I'm going to call on our guest speaker next. We have Miss Priyanka Chatterjee. Miss Priyanka Chatterjee is going to be talking on organic storytelling and marrying storytelling with process drama, improvisation for a journey within. That's a very interesting topic there, Miss Priyanka. And Miss Priyanka is an international story consultant. She's an award-winning story MBA. She's an award-winning story consultant and a storyteller. She is also an NBA gold medalist and alumni from International Institute of Storytelling from the UK. She's also the founder of Wild Strawberry. And over to you, Miss Priyanka.
Just a moment, Amrit. There's a hand raised.
Yes.
So yeah, please invite her to say a few words.
Yes, ma'am. Could you invite? We invite you to say a few words.
Yeah, hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Sana Fatma from UAE. So it's okay, no problem. So thank you so much to ECDF and all the team. I want to say that I'm so glad and excited to get an awardee and the part of the ECDF since 1 year and work with Mrs. Dr. Wasafi. She is a very cooperative and she is a very wonderful lady in this part. She just informed me and then she invited me and she just bring me since last 1 year, and now alhamdulillah I get this award from the ECDF. So I'm very thankful to ECDF and also the ECDF team. Thank you so much to a part of the ECDF. I'm too great.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sana, for your kind words. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Ms. Priyanka. Ms. Priyanka, over to you for the next session.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nagpal, for that lovely introduction. And thank you to Dr. Acharya and the entire ECDF team for the kind invitation. I'm very, very elated to be here amongst this auspicious guests. So, friends, today we are going to talk about organic storytelling. But when something is organic, then something will emerge from the space. And it's not only who will be talking is me, but rather we all will be interacting because it has to be really, really organic and not a lecture. So to start with, because the entire thing will be like, because we are dealing with children and children love to be playful, we will also be playing for the next 40, 45 minutes. So for playing, have you ever seen any play happening, any game happening without seeing each other? Have you ever played a game without seeing your partner? Anybody? You haven't, right? So that is a basic rule that for the next 40-45 minutes, if we can turn our videos on, because the activities that I'll be doing will require your videos will be to be on. Yes, Niti ma'am, absolutely right. Only blindfolds. And nowadays the teens, they are all, playing online games. So for that, we don't require to see each other. Thank you so much, Ramandeep ma'am, Amol sir. If others can put your videos on, because we'll be playing for next 40 minutes. So while people are, putting their scarves on or changing their nighties to maybe a salwar or kurta, whatever, it's okay. You also don't know my entire attire, so it's absolutely fine. Whatever way you are, just come and we'll be chill. So what is organic storytelling? While you are taking yourself up, like Ms. Nagpal already mentioned, organic storytelling is something I have been working on, since I have come in the field of storytelling, and I also have a background of process drama, and I learned clowning from Red Nose, Spen, and International School of Storytelling, UK. So somewhere I saw clowning and storytelling has a lot of things in common. And what are those? Somewhere, there is this fourth wall, as we call, that is there in front of the audience. And for storytelling, process drama, and clowning, that wall drops. You are right in front of your audience, or you are right in front of your children. And the more you engage, the more you interact, the better the interaction is. So let's go. Before any further ado, thank you so much, Lata ma'am, Malika ma'am, Uma ma'am, Neeti ma'am was already there, Ajita ma'am, Survi ma'am, Ramandeep ma'am, Krishna ma'am. So let's go. So the first activity that we are going to do is called an object introduction. Okay, so I'm sure many of you have done this, so I'm not going in the basic version of the game. So the basic version of the game is you ask the children to look around them and find out, name 5 objects around them. So let me try. Wherever my eye falls, I will name the objects. So the first thing is a photograph, a curtain, a bathroom door, a book, and my mobile. Okay. So the second stage is ask them to pick up one object out of this 5. Okay. So maybe I pick up, say I had a comb in this list, and I pick up a comb. And in step 2, I ask them to introduce themselves using this object. And I'm sure many of you have done this. Introduction of ourselves, not telling that I'm Priyanka, blah, 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 blah. Rather, I introduce myself through this object. So let's see how it goes. So this is my comb. And since last October, because this was there in my mind for a long time, that I will go bald. Because I somehow found out that I had to shampoo my hair and I had to flank it and flaunt it. So I somewhere was wondering, who is more important, Priyanka or her hair? So I decided to get rid of my hair. And October 2020, I finally got rid of my hair. And since then, I didn't need my comb. And I went bald. And life was so easy. That winter, I didn't catch cold and my hair dried up in 4 or 5 minutes. And I love that. And I really wonder whether I will keep long hair in any more instances in my life. So it goes for 1 or 2 minutes. I'm sure many of you are doing in your classrooms something called show and tell. Right? So show and tell also uses objects, but over here you are giving them a chance, pick up 5 objects, choose one. Now the game hasn't begun. So this is just the starting. In the next step, okay, so those of you who have your cameras on, can you show me your object? We don't need to tell what object it is. Show your object. Okay, lovely bottle, doll, yeah, remote, yes, mobile, okay, watch, pen, chashma, yeah, specs, right, keyring, lovely. Now, next step 3. We will be, till now we are totally in reality, right? We are going to go in alternate reality. In alternate reality, what we are doing, we will find out an actual uses of this particular object, but how it is not commonly used. For example, this is a comb, but I can use this comb to scratch my back. I can use this comb to bend down, and when I have lost something under the bed, to bring that towards me. I can use this comb to spank my friend in a funny way. And there it can be innumerous uses. But what are those? Those are alternative uses, which is a little different from the mainstream uses, right? Before we go to step number 4, find out whatever you had, the key ring, the bottle, whatever. Find out at least 3 alternate uses of your object. Okay, and once you have found it out, put that in the chat box. Or you can unmute yourself and speak. What are the 3 alternate uses that you have found for your object?
Yeah, can I go ahead, ma'am?
Yes, sure.
So I have this object as pen. I can use it when I'm feeling little hot. So I can just tie up my hair and just poke it inside. Yeah. And I have a 7-year-old son. He's very naughty. So when I take his studies, his attention is like he looks here and there. So I can just poke him, just pay attention. Yeah. And the other thing is, just to reprimand him, I have to just keep it as a stick. Do your work. Like that I can pinpoint. Yes, these are the 3 uses that I can think of as of now.
Lovely, Madam Khan, and thank you so much for those ideas. Yeah, spank. Actually, I was about to say spank my child, but then
No.
Spank my friend, right? But yeah, this one is very common. You will see because I am from Bengal. In Shantiniketan, you will find a lot of women doing, something like that, and it looks lovely. So thank you so much. See how if you are playing this particular game with children, I usually ask them 10 uses, and they work in groups, and they very quickly come up with such solutions, right? So we as educators, we get amazed to see how imaginative and creative children are, and how organically they produce different uses, and they are pushing their boundaries of critical thinking and creative thinking both. Now coming to step 4, we are going to a surreal phase now, and over there we are going to work with the same object. But this time, we are not going to talk about the reality. This time, we are not going to talk about the alternate reality. Rather, we are going to talk about surreality, something that is not real. For example, using the same comb, how am I using it? Try to guess. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is like a dream. How am I using this comb?
As an oar.
As an oar. Absolutely right. But for me, the oar is real because of the movement, because of the gesture, because I'm moving back and forth. Not only my hand is moving, so there is a little drama, there is a little role play over here. And also not only movement and gesture, but also I introduce music over here. So now let us work as with our objects. Once again, you have the same object. Try to create a surreal expression through which you will be expressing something, and we will try to guess what is your object, how you are using your object surreal. And you can take 1 minute or 2 minutes for that. And okay, Niti ma'am is ready. Please, ma'am, go ahead. Niti ma'am, you are muted.
You only want me to do the action, right?
You can also add sound, you can add music.
So I can say,
It's a dumbbell.
Yep, it's the gym dumbbell. I can use my bottle as a gym dumbbell.
Right. Now, Niti ma'am is doing that, and Malika ma'am, you are the gym instructor.
Okay.
Let's see what kind of interaction or what kind of accidents or what kind of love chemistry that might happen between these two during the dumbbell uses.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go slow, ma'am. Very good. You can do it. Yes. Yeah, that's the bingo. Very good, ma'am. You are on the perfect motion. You can lift a little high. Yes, that's it.
And what if the water spills on my head?
And
Then you have
now,
to come to the reality then.
that's beautiful, Malika ma'am, but we are still not stopping. Because in any story, if there is not a problem in the story, it's not a story. So till now, the flow was, in the same level. Now let an accident happen. Any kind of accident. Maybe the gym instructor falls down on the lady. Maybe the dumbbell falls on the lady. Maybe the lady falls in love with the gym instructor. I don't know what kind of accident. But let an accident happen. And let's see where it goes.
So if the water spills?
There's no water. It's a dumbbell.
It's a dumbbell. Okay.
Oh, ma'am, have you hurt yourself? Oh, ma'am, please take care.
If it falls on my foot?
I think
the heavy dumbbell fell on my foot.
Okay, so what kind of sound will come out of your mouth?
Ouch! It's hurting.
Ma'am, are you okay? Okay, ma'am, I'll just call a first aid, ma'am.
I'm not okay. It's hurting.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Sorry for that. I'll just call a medical aid. Just have patience. You'll be all right in a minute.
Thank you for your help.
Hey, thank you so much, Neeti ma'am, and thank you so much, Malika ma'am, for being so sporty and so playful. So
I think,
for
I think only Neeti is fine. Ma'am can be removed. Sounds bad.
Sure. So for everyone over here, first of all, let us appreciate and give them a round of applause, or maybe you can
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Use the reaction button and show them some love, because they really need it. They did a great job. So where did we start? We started from nothing, right? We started sitting here, looking at the space around us, and then things emerged. And that's what we call as organic growth. What is organic growth? When we talk about organic vegetables and fruits, what is that? Without putting pesticides, it's sprouting, right? It's blooming. And we get fruits, vegetables, flowers out of it. Like that, any organic growth meaning we are not putting pressure from outside. Rather, things are developing on its own, in its own way, and magic happens. Like that, in organic storytelling, we start from nothing. In our classroom, we are just standing as an educator with no props in our hand, with no lesson plan in our head. Because now in 21st century, we are also using another word for our classrooms, which is student-centric classroom. And what is student-centric classroom? We are talking about movement from being teacher-centric to student-centric. What is the students' need? What are they thinking? What do they want from their classroom, from their teacher, from their peers? And how that can evolve. It can evolve if we listen, if our listening ears are really strong, and how we can develop that muscle of listening by engaging ourselves in organic storytelling. I'll give you a few more examples before we move on to the next activity. So, meanwhile, before we do that, can I request Dr. Acharya or Ms. Nagpal, if I can get the co-host access, so that if breakout room can be created. If not a big deal. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm trying. Just give me a sec.
Sure. Meanwhile, I'll like to show something. So organic storytelling is about the learning the art of storytelling in the here and now, meaning being in the moment. Because being in the moment, meaning magic can happen. You can expect the unexpected. But moment we have a lot of things clogged inside our head, and we know really this is the way our entire lesson is going to go. This is the path that we are going to follow. That is more like, that patti that is put on the horse's eye. And it cannot look right, it cannot look left, it has to only look straight, which is very binding in a way. So let us look at this particular exercise. When I asked them to bring, a photograph of their of the sky, and that can be, where the clouds are there. So over there,
Priyanka, I made you the host, so you can make the breakout rooms.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So over here, can any of you tell me what kind of a shape or what is coming in your mind when you look at the entire composition? It's not only the cloud, but the entire composition. Anything special?
The cloud looks like North India, actually, the Jammu Kashmir kind of.
Yeah, exactly. The cloud looks like North India. It looks like the topmost part of the
Akhanda Bharat.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, Dr. Barbare, Mr. Barbare and Dr. Acharya. Have you thought like that if the Indian flag was not there? Would you have thought like that? Maybe. Maybe
yeah,
not.
Probably I would have.
So we do meaning making in context, because there are a lot of, there is A, there is B, and there is C. But moment there is C and A and T, then we put them in a context, right? So like that, over here, the Indian flag is giving another context to the cloud. Otherwise, we might have guessed something else. And see, this is already there, because everybody in the classroom has guessed the same. I didn't know Mr. Barbare was going to mention that, right? Or Dr. Acharya is going to mention that. But that was what everybody in the classroom mentioned. And how does that happen? So I'm not saying there is a right answer or there is a wrong answer, but we keep on making stories inside our head. And we start putting meaning and we start putting things in context. Like that, I kept asking, what is this shape? So children kept bringing the clouds, the cloud pictures, sky picture, and then we have had a discussion inside the classroom where it's not only, the discussion didn't only stop at a right answer or a wrong answer. So this particular cloud looks like a bear. This particular cloud looks like a lion. No, it didn't end over there. It went on in a story. What is this cloud saying to the cloud that is next to them? What is, if there is a bear over here and this bear is interacting with in the India map, because that's brought by another child, right? How that will be interacting, and then a story evolves. And why the story evolving is so important. Is it only for storytelling? Not really. Because we are talking about our 21st century skills, of course, not only creative thinking and critical thinking that I spoke about in the first activity, but also we are talking about collaboration and communication. So a lot of collaboration is happening over here, because Amol's cloud is interacting with Mallika's cloud, and Mallika's cloud is interacting with Neeta's cloud, and a story is emerging. And also communication is happening, because they're speaking on not only their stuffs, but on other children's stuffs as well. So over here, I would like to mention something about play therapy. Some of you might have heard about it. So in play therapy, we take, sets of toys. So there can be chess, but for children, you might be thinking, I work in early education sector. The children won't understand what chess is. It's okay. They're not going to know the name of the game, but for them, something looks like, funny. The pawn might look funny, or the elephant that we call it, like the horse that we call it, it might look funny, and they can start playing with it. There can be animal sets, there can be cooking sets, and there can be, other pretend play sets. And then we put that in one corner of the room. And then children go pick their own stuff and then start playing. And like I was mentioning, the collaboration is happening. They're making stories along with each other. What happens on the way is, throughout this interaction, when the stories are emerging, what we found out, we even heard stories about sexual abuse, child sexual abuse. That was, and we had to intervene, not directly, but we spoke with people who were concerned in, in a masked way, and we found out what the child was mentioning is right. I'm not going into legal obligation and all of that, but when interactions like this happen, when organic storytelling happens, because the story is developing in the here and now, lot of backstories are coming out from the children that we didn't expect earlier. So I would like to tell you about a theory that you might have heard about, that psychologists use a lot. It's called iceberg model. How many of you have seen the movie Titanic? Yeah. So that in Titanic, many nods and hands up. In Titanic, what happens? The Titanic crashes. Yes, Subiba. Titanic crashes with an iceberg. And why does it crash? Because the iceberg was quite far away, right? They thought. But actually underneath, the iceberg was very, very near to the ship. And why did that happen? Because only in physics, they say, only 1/12 of the iceberg is on top. Rest is at the bottom, under the water. And nobody can guess by just looking at the tip. And like that, psychologists say that whatever behavioral manifestations that we see, that is nothing but because of whatever is there under the water, whatever is unseen and whatever is unheard. But we are getting frustrated because the child is creating a ruckus in the classroom. The child is not interacting. The child is not responding when asked a question. The child is beating other children. But what is the cause? The cause is maybe stress at home, maybe getting spanked by the parent, maybe sibling rivalry, maybe not getting enough attention, and maybe online fatigue. There might be so many reasons, but those stories are not being heard. And that's why we are getting limited here and not being able to look over here. So what happens during organic storytelling is we actually start hearing the stories that were not heard before. Because those stories are coming from children in a way that they are not expecting. I'm telling this, I'm telling the secret, but rather they are telling it in the process. And if we have an open ears, open eyes and open mind, we would be able to hear the stories that are hidden underneath. So let's look at one particular activity, okay? Because organic storytelling actually goes for 6-8 hours program. I cannot highlight everything, but I would try to squeeze in the best that I have in my kitty. So another activity which is very, very close to my heart is I would play a piece of music, and from that music you have to develop a story line. What did you hear in the music? So in any story you will find at least 3 phases. One is beginning, another is middle, and the third is end. I'm not getting into the complex structures of stories, but this is very basic. Like पहले कुछ होता है, फिर उसके बाद कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है, पहले सब कुछ अच्छा चलता है, फिर उसके बाद कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है, and then अंत में मिलन हो जाता है and everything gets resolved, right? So that's the basic structure, and that is what we are going to follow. So I will play a piece of music, and you will hear that at one point the music changed. And at another point, the music changed. So there will be two changes. Try to gauge and try to develop a storyline from the music that you are hearing. Okay, so here it goes. Let me know if it's too loud or you can't hear it. Can you hear it?
Yes, yes, got it.
Okay, so that was the music. You get 1 minute to develop your storyline. Okay, so who is feeling inspired and who is ready? I can see
That
yes.
yes, to me, Miss Priyanka, your session is wonderful. But yeah, that music reminded me of Mary Poppins and the magic. So I was thinking of Mary Poppins and how she was flying in the air, and then how she with her little umbrella all over. So it reminded me of Mary Poppins. I could connect to that.
That's wonderful. And because there are almost like 30 people, 25 people in the session, I am sure we'll be hearing 25 different stories right now. Because all of us are having different collective experiences, which, the backstories that we have is very, very different. That I am having, Mrs. Krishna is having, Dr. Vasvi is having. All the stories are so different. So, thank you so much, Mrs. Krishna. Can I hear one or two more versions? Just Amol sir, and then Ramandeep ma'am, and then Lata ma'am.
Yeah, so maybe I'm biased, but I have a pet at my home, a pet dog, and I could hear some barking or woof over there. So it reminded me of the movie Pets, where somebody took away some of their friends, and somebody is taking the train, and somebody following them. The pets are following to rescue their friends, and finally they rescue them, and the movie ends. So that's what it reminded me.
That's lovely. I'm not going to give it away right now because there are few more stories that I'm going to hear right now. But Amol sir, I'll be coming back to you for sure. Okay, Ramandeep ma'am.
Okay, so the story begins with a deserted island. There's a boy and a girl, so who are meeting for the first time, and they fell in love with each other. So slowly and gradually, a giant comes over the island. That's BFG, big friendly giant, and he takes the lady away. Now the problem begins. The boy is left all alone in the deserted island. He goes here and there and tries to find the girl, but unfortunately, he his efforts were all goes vain, and he's not able to find out. Then there's a little girl called Sophie who appears, and he takes the boy to the Giant's Island, which is another place. So when they go to the Giant's Island, then he sees that this giant is actually a friendly giant. So he tries to learn the language of the giant, and he becomes friendly with the giant, and he's able to escape his lady love. So in the end, it's all like they live happily ever after.
OMG, Roald Dahl is no more, but I can see new versions of stories are coming up. That's lovely. And it's an entire story, and I can see also a sequel to this particular story. Lovely. Thank you so much for that share. And Lata ma'am, what about you?
Yes. So as soon as I heard that music, all I could imagine was skating ring. Someone is skating in a frozen icy ring. So I thought, why not Miss Funny Bunny? A Funny Bunny character. She's skating on a nice frozen river, and as she is skating, what happened? All of a sudden, the river started melting. So it's not frozen anymore. And Miss Funny Bunny thought, what should I do now? And all she had was a scarf. With a scarf, she made a boat. And she started rowing the boat. As she was rowing the boat happily, all of a sudden, the river was turning into a waterfalls. That's what the ice melting was the twist in between. Then the waterfalls, she was wondering what to do. So she took the scarf and made it as a parachute, and there she flew. So I was imagining this as Miss Funny Bunny's adventure.
And this is a character that you are you might be working on, and maybe there is a storyline, episodic storyline that will come up. All the best, Lata ma'am. I can see possibilities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much everybody for being so imaginative. I'm sure over here the people who didn't get a chance to speak, there are stories bubbling inside you as well, waiting to emerge. So maybe pen them down, speak them to your children, or maybe whoever there is in your family, and more stories will organically develop. So while I shared about music, not only music can inspire other stories, but look at these visuals. We use different visual prompts as well to start a discussion amongst children as well as in adults. These are some prompts that have really, we might be thinking these are really serious prompts for children, but actually we have seen responses even from the early childhood community. So I'm not going into the story arc and all of that, but this is something that is a game that I always play in my classroom. It's called Fortunately, Unfortunately, and that's how I'm going to end my session with. This goes like this. One child tells a sentence with fortunately, and the second one says unfortunately, tells fortunately, unfortunately, and like that. So how does it go? Fortunately, I was invited to a birthday party. Unfortunately, I was in Kolkata, and that birthday party was in New York. Fortunately, my friend lended me a private jet. Unfortunately, that private jet, anybody?
Crashed.
The private jet crashed, exactly, Uma ma'am. How did you know? But fortunately, in the private jet, who can tell me?
We all survived.
We all survived, yes. Crash. there were parachutes. Absolutely right, Amit ma'am. And unfortunately, we survived the plane crash. But when we were coming down with the parachute, unfortunately,
We landed on a marooned island.
we landed on a maroon island which was full of tigers. Exactly, Lata ma'am. It looks like we all are in the same journey. And you all have guessed it already, that it can go on and on and on, right? Where did we start? Did I have a lot of props with me? Did I have a lot of puppets with me? I'm not saying props are bad. I'm not saying puppets are bad. I'm not saying storyboards are bad. All of them are wonderful, wonderful teaching aids. But when we are speaking about public speaking, for example, if I'm talking about death, हम लोग बोलते हैं डर के आगे जीत है, right? So, how many of you think that death is the biggest fear in somebody's life? Yeah, Niti ma'am is like, yes, of course. Lata ma'am also. Do you know that there was a survey that was done in USA which said death is the second largest fear in human mind? What is the first fear? It's public speaking. Being on the stage, feeling naked in front of thousands of audience. And I felt like that when I was speaking to an audience in Netaji Indoor Stadium in Kolkata, which was full of 10,000 people. And I had to address them. And it looked like I'm very confident. But inside me, I knew what was happening. And I'm sure for all speakers, that bubble, that butterfly keeps fluttering inside. And there's nothing bad about that, because if it doesn't flutter, the quality outcome doesn't happen. But how that standing without nothing, when you are going for public speaking, do you carry anything? When I travel internationally, can I actually go to different countries in the storytelling festival or literature festival or deliver workshops? How much luggage can I carry? How many props can I carry? The biggest prop that is always there with us is ourselves, is our body, and is our voice, and how we can use that for betterment of ourselves and for everyone else. And the answer is organic storytelling. Address our inner selves, be in the moment, in the present, in the now. Hear yourselves and hear others. And the solutions, the outcomes will be magical. All the best for your organic storytelling journey. And I'm sure many, many organic storytellers are going to emerge from this particular session. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you, Ms. Priyanka. That was an extremely engaging session. You can see all the reactions of all the participants over here, and it was truly amazing. And I think what you've really done is you've got us into a new direction of organic storytelling. And I think early years educators that most of us are here are dealing with early years or primary years are really going to use it when we go back in our sessions, whether online or when we go back to physical classrooms. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And all the dear attendees, the awardees, I would like to say thank you so much for supporting us, for giving us your precious time. We've had 2 beautiful days, extremely engaging and interesting and interactive speakers and panelists across the 2 days. What we've been hearing a lot is the neuroplasticity session was amazing. So thank you so much for being there and listening to us. At ECDF and the team at ECDF, we try to bring new innovations that are there in the field of early years, and we strive very hard to bring newness to all the attendees that we have. And today was also a very interesting day with Dr. Suja Koshi talking about whole language approach. Though the whole language approach has been existing for a long time, we just don't know how to use it appropriately. And the way she's explained about having an extremely print-rich environment into our classrooms. And she spoke about how we could engage children at home as well as in our classrooms. And thank you, Ms. Priyanka, for making that successful marriage between organic storytelling, process drama, and improvisation. And it wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have got everybody into the zone and making everybody being more in a participative and an engaging mode. Thank you so much, audience, for being here today. Stay tuned with ECDF, because we are coming up with many webinars, story kapitaras, and many further events that are lined up in the forthcoming months. I would just like to invite Dr. Vasavi to say a last few words before we end today's session.
Thank you, Amrit. And I thank each and everyone for taking out their time and being a part of this third anniversary celebration of ECDF. And I, from the bottom of my heart, thank all those who delivered wonderful workshops, the invited workshop speakers, 3 of us, 2 workshops we did today and 1 yesterday, and we really got good feedback. And I congratulate all the awardees for the excellent work. And I feel that they really deserve the awards, and the work they have been doing is wonderful. Keep it up, and we'll come up with more programs in this month and in the coming months. And until then, goodbye, see you again. And we are coming up with another event, which is very huge. It's going to be a nationwide storytelling competition called the Story Kapitara, which is coming up. And I would really appreciate all those educators who are into storytelling to come and join in this festival come awards, so that, all good storytellers get recognition, and on the other hand, also learn a lot about storytelling. So thank you so much, and thank you for being there. Over to you, Amrit.
Thank you, everybody, for making the last 2 days extremely successful and engaging. Have a good weekend ahead. We are moving on to a Diwali break very soon. So wish you all the good luck and the blessings of the goddess. And we welcome the new year with a COVID-free year for sure. So wish you all the best, and stay home, stay safe wherever you are. Thank you so much.